Hello, followers. Again, it's Darkside doing episode 2 of my video blog. If you're watching this is probably on the Darkside YouTube channel. Um, and it's going to look like episode 1, but it is actually episode 2. If you go into the favorites video, you can watch episode 1, which is really just an introduction. It's nothing special. But go ahead and watch that if you feel the need to do so. So this episode is more to talk about some of my darker work, my horror photography, the dark images, gore, grotesque, that type of thing that you will see in my work. It's kind of the explanation of why that exists in my portfolio and why I choose to shoot in that style quite often. It's one of those things that I probably talked about before in small format on Twitter or on other blogs, but I thought this was a good venue to talk about it just because, heck, it's my video blog, and if people are interested in why I do my work, this is where they can find the explanation. So the reason behind a lot of the darker work that I do from my own standpoint is to deal with a lot of things that have happened to me in my past, present, and ongoing through life. Like anyone, there are different things that we deal with through life. You know, Negative things, can be anything from the mental scars that we suffer, emotional scars that we suffer from childhood, and that being a certain way, or it can be something more recent, like a loss or an emotional event, or it can just sometimes be life in general. When you kind of get that feeling like life is kind of beating you down a little bit. All of those things, to varying degrees, build up what I feel is this well of negative emotion and negative energy. And that through a lot of these things, that well can just keep filling and filling and filling. And as an individual, I think you have choices about what you do with all that negativity. You can hold on to it and hold on to it and just kind of let it eat away at you. You can find very negative ways to deal with those negative emotions and thoughts. You can drink those thoughts away. You can do as many drugs as you want until those thoughts go away. But those really, in my opinion, aren't more positive ways to deal with them. And obviously those ways have consequences that far outweigh any benefits in most cases. So for me, I find that my art and my photography can be that outlet. It can be that way to express those things, to communicate those things in a way that I connect with, and in a way that I feel visually represents a lot of those things. And I don't think I'm alone in this. There's a lot of photographers, models, painters, sculptors, other artists that work in various mediums that deal and work with a lot of these same darker images and darker themes as a coping, surviving, and communicating mechanism. And as part of the collaborative effort as well, a lot of the people I work with, as far as models and other collaborators, a lot of them have dealt with similar things and sometimes much worse situations that have left them with everything from physical, emotional, and mental scars, that find this venue a way to cope as well. And like me, a way to visually put put out there what they're feeling and use it as a way to cope. There is something very a really good feeling that you get if you can take a very negative emotion, visually put it out there so that it exists, and then know that that visually exists and you can look at it, but you can also walk away from it. For me, it almost makes the ability to step away from a negative emotion easier because I can now see it. I've kind of given it life, and I can also walk away now that it has its own life. That may sound kind of weird, but that's just kind of how it personally fits me and how I feel about it. Obviously, a lot of this work can be misconstrued in different things. Everyone's going to have their own opinion of what my work means. They're going to view it through their own eyes and through their own conceptions or misconceptions about myself, about the images that they're seeing. Obviously, art is in the eye of the beholder. You know, I would never take that from anyone, but I think there is some merit to giving explanation of why that type of imagery exists in my particular body of work. And I do think that's true in other artists that deal with similar imagery. It is true that it's going to offend somebody. That's just the nature of things. You can't be an artist that works with edgier concepts and things that are more on the fringe element and not offend someone. It's just kind of what happens. But I would certainly choose to offend someone over the very images versus have people assume that the work comes from a different place. A lot of the images, obviously there's a lot of blood and gore and what would appear to be violent imagery in some of my work, but the intent is not to condone that sort of thing. It's not not condoning violence. Any of you who know me personally know I am certainly not that kind of person, quite the opposite. Nor is it to condone any sort of behavior that would be negative to another person. I truly am a believer in karma, and in my own life I think that has played true for the good and for the bad. So certainly any negative energy is something that you don't want to bring in. But the darker images, I think, are a way to help put that particular negative energy to a certain side and to deal with it. And that's really the reason. It's not a gratuitous display of blood and violence and gore. There really is a reason behind it for myself, and oftentimes for the contributors and models who work with me. So that is my rather lengthy explanation of my work. Hopefully you didn't find it too boring. And hopefully the next version of this video blog is a little bit more lighthearted. This was kind of the darker, really no pun intended this time, darker version. So next time we'll talk a little bit about my lighter work, some of the reasoning behind the concepts and images and that side. So thanks for listening, and look out for the next episode. Again, you can find me on www.ImagesByDarkside's is my main page, and of course in all the other places where you might be viewing this video, Twitter, Facebook, etc. So see you guys later.